Well, hello, welcome to Business Morning, the TGIF trading day right here in Lagos, Nigeria. Let's get to the top stories that set your agenda now. We're seeing oil prices extending gains today from yesterday, heading for a weekly uptick of more than 4% as Ukraine war has intensified, with Russian President Vladimir Putin warning of a global conflict. And we're seeing the impact on commodities now. $74.33 a barrel. That's for Brent crude, 0.1%. Even though we saw the dollar index as the DXY hit a new high, and normally when you see a stronger dollar, commodities go the opposite direction, but we're seeing geopolitics popping up. The oil market, $70.23, that's for the US grade WTI, leaving that $60 range for now, 0.2%. Both contracts jumped more than 2% yesterday, and are set to cap gains of more than 4% this week, the strongest weekly performance since late September, as Moscow has stepped up its offensive against Ukraine after the U.S. and Britain allowed Kyiv to strike Russia with their weapons. All right, let's look at other markets now. We see the FX market. Definitely for the close yesterday, it was quite an interesting one. A big 1.71% jump there for the NFM window. On the flip side, we see the NAFEX window that closed weaker, 0.73%, 1,693 naira 36 kobo to the dollar for the NAFEX window. For the NFM window, 1,658 naira. So we see a strengthening there. But will it be a positive week? We'll definitely find out at the close of trade. That's later today, if this is not snapped. To other news now, a new survey by the National Bureau of Statistics shows that 62.4% of Nigerian households are food insecure, struggling to access nutritious or preferred foods due to financial constraints. The findings are contained in the NBS 5th edition of the General Household Survey panel, covering about 4,715 households nationwide. The report highlights a sharp rise in food insecurity, with concerns about food sufficiency increasing from 36.9% in 2019 to about 62.4% in 2023. And it's also reported that households are eating fewer types of food. It's 60.5% consumed less than needed. That's less food than is 60.5%. Households eating fewer food types. That's 63.8%. Price hikes impact 71%. The survey also examines migration, remittances, early childhood developments, and climate shocks. And definitely we know the MPC is meeting next week, so they will take this definitely into consideration. I did tell you it was a budget season, and we see in Lagos State, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu presented over 3 trillion naira for the 2025 fiscal expenditure to the State House of Assembly for approval. Governor Sanwo-Olu says the 2025 budget speaks to the state government's vision of balancing the pressing needs of the people in the areas of health, education, security, with the undeniable responsibility of securing the future of Lagos residents. Take a listen.
The Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, makes his way into the Lagos State House of Assembly chamber to present the year 2025 budget estimates to the lawmakers. The year 2025 budget, called Budget of Sustainability, is the proposed size of over 3 trillion naira. With a total revenue of over 2 trillion, deficit financing of over 408 billion naira, internally generated revenue of more than 1 trillion, and recurrent expenditure of over 1 trillion naira. The governor says the budget will focus on infrastructure development cutting across different sectors.
Work has commenced on the phase 2 of the Blue Line, which will extend from Mile 2 to Okomaiko. I'm also pleased to note that there has been a recently signed MOU between the Federal Minister of Finance Incorporated, MOFI, to kickstart exploratory work for the development of a 68-kilometer green line, which will connect Marina to the Lekki Free Trade Zone. On our healthcare agenda, ongoing projects which includes the new Massive Street Hospital, of which construction started about a year and a half ago, and which will be the biggest pediatric facility in the whole of Sub-Saharan Africa, is set for completion in the year 2025. The construction also of an 280-bed general hospital in Ojo, and a psychiatric hospital which has a capacity of about 1,000 patients in Ketu is also well underway.
He also appeals to the people to support government policies in order to fulfill the promises made to them.
As we prepare for the approval and implementation of this budget, I urge every of us to play their part in building a Lagos that endures. Please continue to support us. Obey the laws of the land. Pay your tax promptly and in full. Exercise vigilance and time and at all times. And do not hesitate to provide useful information that will keep us all safe and secure.
The State Assembly also gives an assurance of ensuring speedy passage of the 2025 budget proposal.
The Assembly will not delay the passage of the budget, but we will be interested in placing high premium on the need to ensure the interests of Lagosians are protected socio-economically and politically.
The Lagos State government says the 2025 budget is not just a fiscal document, but a blueprint for continuity, resilience, and shared prosperity for every Lagosian.
And now to our first conversation. We see Nigeria has made significant strides in promoting financial inclusion, in recent years. However, despite these efforts, a substantial portion of the population remains excluded from formal financial services. So boosting financial inclusion is crucial for Nigeria's economic growth. And we're trying to get that $1 trillion economy. Now let's identify opportunities and examine strategies for promoting sustainable financial inclusion. And joining me for this conversation, TGIF is Sanwo-Olu, who is the MD CEO, eTransact PLC. Joining me right here in the studio. It's great to have you.
Good, it's good to be here.
Welcome. So definitely, seeing all that's played out in Nigeria's financial services industry, we've seen a lot of innovations. We've seen people do things that they couldn't do before. Like before you make a transaction, you have to go to the banking hall. But now, I don't remember when last I entered the banking hall. Everything is now electronic, but there's still issues at this point. So talk to me from your viewpoint. Where are we, and what are the opportunities?
Oh, interesting. With financial inclusion creates a lot of opportunities. Look, Nigeria is a very big country with people. Once you have a large size of people, with the size of Nigeria, then you have so many things to offer them. One of the great things here is financial inclusion, how to get the bulk of the citizens into the financial services ecosystem, to get them included, to do payments, to do savings, to do insurance, credit, all kinds of things that can drive entrepreneurship, drives SMEs, and drive the economy. Now, if you look at some of the things you talked about in terms of the transformation we've seen over time in terms of digital payments, it's crazy. We see that eTransact on a daily basis, transaction growth, seamless payments, and one of the key drivers of this is the investment in technology that allows you to do some of these things seamless. And once you begin to build the trust and confidence in the ecosystem, that's one of the critical factors that will allow people that are excluded to become inclusive and do financial transactions.
Right, and definitely, we're all aiming and love the idea of a cashless system. But looking at the situation in Nigeria, it seems like the ATMs are they're not functioning anymore at this time. You go to some public ATMs, is all covered with dust at this point. So no cash there. And we see POS operators, we see that segment that's growing. They seem to have cash and they collect transaction fees for that, which is more expensive than if you were going to an ATM. So how much of that is a risk for financial inclusion, even though we want a cashless society?
It's not, I won't see it as a risk. It's an enabler. Look, you want to bring people that have never trusted brick and mortar financial institutions into the financial services ecosystem. And then you expect them to go to a complex machine looking like a robot they have no connection with. Meanwhile, you compare that with Mama BC, who has a POS, who sells fish, rice, and medicine, every other thing in that village ecosystem or that rural ecosystem. You see that person. Look, a research was done several years ago, about Nigerians and currency. Our culture, I think the research was done in 2012. Our current culture, there is a need to touch currency. So that affects cashless in Nigeria significantly. And it also has to do with trust. Look, you owe me money, or I owe you money, you gave me money a while back, and I have to refund you. I want to look you in the eye as I refund you, so I'm giving you that money. So you don't want any situation where I tell you I've transferred it, you've not seen it, you know? And then I'm like, dude, I've done this. Where is the money? So that trust is critical, and the convenience is critical. POS, there's a trust there because you see the person you're transacting with. Convenient, it's available every time. You can just walk across. You can even call, 10 p.m., 11 p.m., 12 midnight. If you need money, you can call, the Babak Benga who's doing the POS thing. Please, I need 10,000 naira. I'm sending Bola, my daughter, to you. It's convenient. You trust the people. You see them. It's simple. So once you continue to invest in technology that simplifies the access and the equipment and the infrastructure you use to bring people into the digital space of payments, you got it.
So this technological future that we're looking at, there's no cash there.
Yeah.
No cash in that future.
There might be some cash. It's a process, because in the more advanced countries that have done a lot more digital payments, there's always cash. You have the depending on the demography. But the reason why this is critical for Nigeria is I've seen some reports where the money in the formal sector is the money in the informal sector is almost about 80% the same size of the money in the formal sector, and that is not captured anywhere, informal trading. So if you think about it, you have 200 million Nigerians, you have 140 million specific, plus or minus some percentages, 140 million specific individuals with mobile phones. Those are people that have access to, that can have access to financial products. That's a big size there. How many of them are actually banked? Based on the BVN data, about 60, 65 million of that 140 million are banked. So you have another 65, 70 million out there in the space that are driving the informal economy. They're driving cash. Bring 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 million of that 70 million into the financial services ecosystem. I'll show you how to create $1 billion business.
$1 billion business.
$1 billion business.
I'm talking about $1 billion business. We've seen a couple of unicorns.
Yes.
Come out of Nigeria.
Yeah.
So we know the economic headwinds at this point.
Yeah.
I know inflation and currency devaluation must be a big, huge scare.
Absolutely.
For startups. At this time. So talk to me. How are you seeing fundraising? At this time for most of these startups, is it getting harder, or are they meeting somewhere in the middle?
Well, it's a mix of both. Look, startups trade on the promise of the solution they've brought into the market space. So at some point, you have to deliver and realize those projections. Investors will always invest in good ideas. Experienced ones will invest in good ideas, but those ideas must come to reality. If they don't come to reality, over time, you create a bubble, everything busts. But you have to understand that in this part of the world, in Nigeria particularly, which is one of the reasons why I think our digital payments muscle is huge globally. It's felt globally. A lot of foreign investment has come into fintech in Nigeria. Fastest growing fintech ecosystem, in Africa. It's because we have created solutions that solve our problems. You just talked about you having to go to bank. Look at one of the products E-Transact created several years ago, a pay outlet for school fees. Before, you have to go to the branch of the university, where the university opened its account to pay. Then suddenly you can go to any branch of that bank, and then suddenly you can go to any bank. E-Transact transformed that space with our educational solution pay outlet, where anywhere, any branch, any bank, you can pay into University of Lagos account. So bringing those type of solutions together over time is what builds the confidence to help us deepen the digitization that we see. And in Nigeria particularly, we've created solutions that have solved our problems. If a solution is solving a problem, it's bankable. You'll get funding, easy. If a solution is not solving a problem and you're still trying to solve a problem, that's where you struggle. I think we have a mix of both, which is why, yes, you see some slowdown in funding, but then you also still see some deep, heavy hitters in funding. Nigeria is a very fertile ground for investment, and I can bet on it absolutely.
And I saw a recent report from Stairs, and it talked about private capital looking more towards equity than debt. So they would rather take equity in the company and put their funds forward. So is that a trend we're going to see going forward? That happened in Q3, from that report. So is it that investors just prefer equity at this point?
Well, investors will always prefer equity because it's upside. Equity is full upside. And debt is always cheaper than equity because, debt, you take the debt, you pay the interest, you pay it back. All the value created goes to the equity holders. That's the sweet thing about equity, and once you have equity, you're in it for life, especially if it's a bankable project. Once you've invested in equity, you own that, you own the size of that business as long as that business continues to deliver. So I think it's a trend that has been around. It's more, I think people are talking a lot more about it because debt interest has gone, haywire globally. In Nigeria, I'm hearing 40% to take loans.
And we have another rate setting meeting that's coming up next week. Consensus is we might see another hike, going forward. But talk to me about you're a listed company at this time, and definitely investors would like to know the financial health of the company. Q3 results flying all over the place. How was it for you?
Blown away numbers. Look, consistently for the past 16 quarters, E-Transact has exceeded its expectations. We started our transformation journey in 2019. We revamped our strategy, focusing on switching as an infrastructure, merchant marketplace, merchant activity, and then the direct-to-consumer, which is our financial inclusion business and our digital bank. So if you look at all of that, we are a switch, a central infrastructure, a backbone for the industry. And we're leveraging that to build merchant acquiring activity, and we're also leveraging that to transform the financial inclusion space. We're leveraging that to build our digital bank, creating several features for, a good demographic of Nigerians to do financial transactions.
So somehow you're not affected by most of these headwinds.
Well,
currency devaluation.
Look, it's just like the food business. Funeral, people eat. Naming ceremony, people eat. Wedding, people eat. It's same thing as payments. Every time you're making a payment, you could reduce the frequency or increase the value, but at every point in time, you're making payments.
Right.
We are a switching infrastructure. We sit at the back end of all the debits and credits and all the settlement positions. So E-Transact will always be rich.
All right. Thank you so much. And definitely looking forward to more inclusion right here in Nigeria when it comes to financial inclusion. Thank you so much. It was great having your perspective, Mr. Nee Toluwalopezi, MD CEO, E-Transact PLC. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thanks, buddy. All the best.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, more conversations there. I'm sure you've been hearing about Fund It Forward. We're going to hear more right after this break. Welcome back. Well, Fund It Forward, the engaging social enterprise competition series, and it's presented by Channels Television. We've had season 1, and season 2 is definitely upon us at this time, and we have change agents, trying to get that 30 million naira grant. Well, joining me to discuss what to expect, we have Neil Oyeneko, the series producer, Fund It Forward season 2 is right here in the studio. Great to have you.
It's a pleasure.
Yes, and I'm going to give you my own pitch right now. So we just end season 2, and you just give me that 30 million. How about that? So talk to me about season 1 and what we expect for season 2.
I think what we found out with Fund It Forward was there's a new initiative, that was kicked off by Channels Television last year, but it revealed to us the pool of young enterprise that is filled, within, every spectrum of this country. We were able to attract a number of them from all geopolitical zones, and we were able to sort of put their business through a stress test, which enabled us to see which ones are more viable than the others. But what's more interesting in the process is it was more transformational for everybody who was involved. I mean, the price is the price, but really the process is what we're aiming to use to sort of re-engineer young entrepreneurs in this country to understand exactly, what the metrics of building a business is like.
And talk to me about this, the inspiration, for this.
When the time for an idea comes, it certainly grows and it comes to be. The initiative itself was pushed forward by, the CSR president of Channels Television, Zemi Momo. She came up with the initiative and just wanted it fashioned into a TV show that can be used to get into the minds of young people. So I just think it's a homegrown idea, which I think has a fitting timing in the way we're deploying it at this point in time. So through and through, it came from Channels, it's on Channels, and we hope to do great things with it.
All right, I'm sure
Channels.
When it comes to ideas, people come up with different businesses. Talk to me about the most bizarre one you got. Season one.
The funny thing is, some of the greatest things are already in plain sight. It's just that we kind of overthink sometimes to try and find the right business. We kind of overthink sometimes to find the right formula for it. The gentleman that came with a packaged abacha business last year, basically won the grand prize of 30 million naira. Not because he did something totally new, but he found a new way of doing something very common. So the ideas themselves, there's tons of them. But what we did realize is the manner in which you deploy them matters very much towards its success. And I think that's what Fund It Forward brings, to the table. It allows people put their businesses, young CEOs, put their businesses through a filter that really helps appropriate, align, and sort of fortify it, ready for the big world.
Quite interesting. Talk to me about how the team, how you find most of these candidates.
Okay. So what we initially did in season one was try and find, the circles in which these tribe of people do exist. And when we talk about the type of people, we're looking at people who are very young, but yet conscious about impact investment. So what happens here is we're looking for young CEOs who are not just thoroughbred capitalists who want to make money, which we all do, but more so have interest in impacting on the environment, on the society, on the larger nation within which they exist. Now, this is a special tribe of business people, but amongst this young generation, they're beginning to emerge. So it's something which we identified, with pre-industrial China. No vision solves a country. It's the people that will solve it. And knowing the demographic of Nigeria, you'd understand that the young demographic is the future. So the idea of creating an initiative that sort of engenders, them, it enables them, and then it empowers them, to grow their business, is a key thing at this point in time, whereby we sort of have a bit of a migration issue.
Right, a migration issue, and also a high interest rate environment. So if you're trying to get most of these funds from the banks, you know what to expect,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, looking at, you're going through the process, from season one, your idea and all of that, you meet all those business leaders, you come out, you win the prize. What's post-season like?
Yeah. So one good thing about the initiative is when it was being put together, with the teams at Channels, a key mandate was to make sure that it does have an off-air life, meaning that the program itself is the one, we get to see, we all sort of get entertained by, but more importantly, when we're off-air, they've built in a support mechanism through all the strategic partners to allow every entrant to be able to have access to mentorship, to access to programs that are local, international, and also to be able to sort of use some of their infrastructure to drive their business. And this came from organizations like the CC Hub, Alethea Capital, and Leap Africa, who've all been fantastic partners so far in growing this initiative. So it is more what happens after than what happens actually before, if you get where I'm coming from.
All right, let's look at social investing now.
Yes.
What's the future of that in Africa?
Well, it's something we have to grow, because everybody would kind of look up, to the center in Abuja, as far as Nigeria goes, for solutions. But the real solutions are actually the ones which we ourselves deploy. And if every enterprise, if every business found one or two little things that they could use to sort of improve the environment, improve the lives of people, improve the economy, you'd find out that what government will have to do is create enabling policies to help sort of grow that impact. It's not necessarily going to come all the way from the center as we found in other countries. It's actually going to come from within. And I think it starts with all of us. So this new young tribe of enterprise that we're trying to build, we believe it will have a multiplier effect on many other young people who are going into business. But I think the most thing is it's great to make money, but it's even greater to impact with the money you make.
Right. And this week, International Men's Day.
Oh, yeah.
Happy International Men's Day. How important is gender balance?
Okay. In a country like Nigeria or in Africa, predominantly, I think over the past 10 years, what's been evident is there's been this shift, to make sure that there's sort of, a balanced equilibrium in terms of, gender in the corporate world, in business, in sports. But I think what's interesting about what we're seeing is that we probably have, and we're not talking about statistics because I can't pull that right off my head, but we have had quite a positive impact when you actually see this gender balance in the workplace, when you see it in business, when you see it even in sports, you begin to realize that both genders, not to take on one, do bring a lot to the table. And it's important that we encourage it from the very start with young people so that it's something which they grow with, in their ways of life.
Right. I'm talking about the current season at this point. The prize. Talk to me about the prize and who is seeing as a favorite to win this season.
I mean, we try and reiterate the fact that, there's always got to be a prize because something's got to motivate people. But I think the most important thing is what do we learn in the process? But that said, not to rub them off the glory, the grand prize for this year is a 30 million grant, a 15 million naira grant, and a 5 million naira grant, for the respective businesses that make the top finalist. We kind of do think it's more about what you learn, but the money is good, because if your business is successful, it will make way much more money.
And, looking at the current ideas we're seeing, with this season, how much of your interest is picked at this point?
Well, this is the funny thing about young people. They don't think like the generation before them. They're very brash. They're radical.
About Gen Zs? Or?
Well, even if we sort of look at the millenniums down,
right,
they're very sort of, out of the box. And what happened is some of the ideas that came to us, we couldn't even imagine them. I mean, there's a lady who's thinking about how to convert carbon emission into this positive thing, talking about people who are using these big generators, trying to explain that the waste in that generator actually can be turned into wealth. And I'm like, how's that possible? You begin to realize that these are interesting people, and many of those ideas are shortlisted for the season 2. In terms of favorites, I'm sure we will all have one, but I'll encourage us more to watch and find, who appeals to us.
We'll definitely be watching. Definitely. Thank you so much, Neil. Oyineko is a serious producer, funded forward season 2, and definitely look out for my pitch. I'm going to give you my pitch right after this show, so we just call it a day.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
All righty then. So the trading session, that's the TGIF trading session, that's on right now at 1 p.m. I'll give you an update on how it's playing out on most of the global markets we track. That's it from me on Business Morning. I'm Ladi Williams. I hand things over now to the Sunrise Daily team.